Okay, great. We are live now. Let's start. I hope my screen is visible and am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So friends, welcome to session number 29 for the MPG. This is actually a continuation of the GPM and the NPM part, the series on costing that we took, because costing and the profit margins, whether it is a GPM or it is a NPM, they both are a KPI or a metric for measuring your growth and or measuring your profitability. And if you're more profitable, that would automatically mean that you're growing in practice. So continuing with that, going to take the granddaddy of those profitability. That was just a small part of this big iceberg. I'll try to concise a few things in these 2 or 3 sessions, whatever I'm going to take on these metrics on or the KPIs. So if you remember the last session in costing, I gave you 4 dental KPIs every practice manager should know. So yes, those will be discussed a little with a little bit of extension. And of course, I'll be giving you a few further tweaks and a further mention of various other kind of KPIs as well. If you remember, I gave you around 27 costs which are there, which are applicable to various other industries. I'll give you 27 KPIs as well today. So let's begin without much delay. So thank you, Lord Almighty, who's given me much more than what I deserve. So this is my brief CV. Studied a lot of metrics and KPIs in my during my MBA in with IIM in Pune. Hospital management actually gets you to measure those things a lot. Then we did a lot of calculations in my one of the initial courses. My this last 2 postgraduate certificate in hospital management and health and family welfare management. They actually make us undergo a lot of those calculations to measure certain growth patterns to manage a hospital scenario. This NHFW qualifications from DDA Flats Murrika was actually one of the earliest things that I did when I started my learning phase offline, along with my say dentistry, of course. So this was a regular course. We had regular sessions every alternate month, and as it was a 6-month course, we went there for 5 to 7 days in every alternate day. So the metrics calculated still come handy in many spheres, even today's practical life. So this is MPG webinar number 29, as we are coming to the end of the MPG by the end of June. So this is part 1, maybe 2 or 3 parts on the same would be there. So as I told you earlier also in one of the earlier presentations on costing also, that people, what I mean to refer here is the dentists. They actually try to boast of their OPDs, their professions. There are usually 3 boasting phenomenons which have been used. आपकी ओपीडी कितनी है? My OPD is 50, 60. आपके नंबर ऑफ क्राउन्स कितने हैं? मैं 100 यूनिट करता हूँ एक महीने का. What is your average income? I have an average income of 10 lakhs plus. So these are the 3 most common metrics in general hoi polloi, if we say, or the general population of dentists. Kitne units of crown, how many units of crowns, how many numbers of OPD per day, and how much average gross income. They don't take the net income. They always talk about the gross because that appears lucrative. And they don't bother that sometimes even 40 to 50% goes in the expenses. But then this is a metric they are fond of boasting of. And people are actually mesmerized by those things. How many teeth actually stung around your neck by the end of the day? Kind of a proverb only. But then in today's time, the units and those things have come down because the charging part has gone up. Because when you mentioned 100 units, I remember one of my initial career phase, one of my batchmates, one of the dud students of the college, he started his practice in a hospital, almost failed. Then he started in his native town. a very small suburb of my town, Ludhiana only. He actually then started practice because his father and his ancestral business was there of some other industry, not the dental industry. So small town, lot of referrals, lot of known people. The practice immediately picked up. So his way of showing superiority or comparison was how many units. So when people said 10, 20, 30, 40, so 100 units. My starting point is just for 100 units. He forgotten that failure of 3.5 to 4 years when he was having his own chamber in a hospital. But then those 100 units actually comprised of acrylic crowns in those days, the JG crowns, the Japanese gold, which was done much those days, the metal crowns, and the PFM crown. Of course, there was no zirconia. I'm talking of year 2002 and 3, almost say 20 years back. But then today, the numbers actually don't revolve around the crowns, because people can have, somebody can have 50 PFMs and somebody can have 10 zirconias comparison to that. And the numbers for the 10 zirconia would be way higher if he knows how to charge. That is where most of the dentists actually commit a mistake. So the benchmarks have changed now. The industry standards have changed now. Some people do charge well, and they really charge well, irrespective of what their costs are. They might not be aware of all the costing numbers. But then, yes, this thing caught up like fire. I received a lot of feedback yesterday, multiple WhatsApp messages, a couple of calls yesterday also, day before yesterday also, on what exactly is a GPM and NPM. So kind of a good thing if it sets the ball rolling amongst the dentists, because that is the ultimate aim, that you should know about your numbers. People used to always say, "Aap bolte rehte ho, know your numbers." How do we know our numbers? Your numbers are your costing primarily first. So we actually, without bothering whether our practice is profitable or not, we just looked at one scenario for us. This was when this number was when we actually started to compare with others. But then if we had a good footfall, then सीधा सही होता था यार, chairs कम पड़ जाती हैं, OPD बहुत आती है, without taking into account how many actually converted or how many actually converted to big ticket purchases. So people actually forget that, and then they start to expand prematurely, or maybe add associate dentists, or build multiple chambers, employ chairs, clinic renovation कर दिया, थोड़ा बंद कर दिया, कहीं और जगह बड़ी ले ली. All these actually are cost increasing measures, and just rely on the numbers of the OPD is a too premature a benchmark, that would I would say. So we actually need to know that whether we are spending the money in the right place. For that, you really need to have a control or an understanding of your expenses or your costing, for which we took 5 sessions. So the saying is very common. You can't manage what you don't measure. जब आपको पता ही नहीं है, तो how can you actually get to those things that where the flaw lies, where the deficiency lies? So then there is the role of KPI, or the performance indicators, or a metric, but more so for the KPI. So what are the performance indicators, the key performance indicator as we call them? These are some measurable values that actually tell you, for a company, for an organization, for us, a clinic, achieving our business objectives. Every one of us would have different business objectives. Some would have, I want to double my OPD or the footfall numbers. Some would say, I want to double my income. Some would say, I want to dream big like Dhirubhai Ambani. I want to have a billionaire or a millionaire dental practice. Again, the goals may vary, but how can you actually be sure that whether you are achieving them or not? There, the measuring part comes through the KPIs only in those regards. And high level KPIs, if we say, they can focus on the overall performance, while the low level can actually pinpoint the deficiencies in the smaller sub segments like sales department, marketing department, HR, support, and others. Of course, we don't have such departments in our clinic scenario. What I'm trying to actually give you is the holistic picture. So that, and wherever it is applicable in dentistry, I'll surely tell you that. Similar to the different costings in dentistry, which they were applicable as and when I told you over there. So remember which kind of a KPI are you going to apply? I'll give you multiple examples for that as well. So if you have to go by the dictionary definition, what exactly is a KPI? So Oxford says a quantifiable measure to evaluate the success of any organization or employees in meeting the objectives for performance. So there is a certain benchmark that you have to keep yourself first in your practice, because if you keep a benchmark and then start measuring it and then don't get the results or get the results, then only you will know whether you're growing or not. We look at one index only, predominantly 90% plus dentists. I would say even more. मेरी इनकम 5 लाख थी, अब इनकम 10 लाख हो गई. मेरी इनकम 2 लाख थी, it has become 3 lakh or 4 lakh. We just look at the gross collection, which is a grave mistake to have a look. Yes, sometimes those numbers might be correct 10, say 2 out of 12 times in a month or in a year, sorry. So, but they need not always be. So our criteria is never the number of patients, never the number of conversions, because for that, you need to go at a micro level on your record keeping, which I have been, literally pestering you for so many years now. The record keeping is your biggest, say, guide or a biggest manual to go through those things where you can actually have a quantifiable results or measure those things. So Investopedia says a set of quantifiable measures that a company uses to gauge its performance over time. The Macmillan's Dictionary says a way of measuring the effectiveness of an organization and its progress towards achieving its goals. So goals need not always be quantifiable. They can be quality goals also. They can be, say, qualitative goals also. But yes, we always say when we can measure something, we can actually measure the quantity, when we can measure the numbers. So that is where the role of figures and numbers comes in. You need to know what you stand for in your practice via numbers, if not telling to others, at least to yourself. You should have a clear picture in your mind. You need not disclose, you may not disclose that to anyone else. So Abraham Maslow has given a wonderful quote for that. And I actually may not have mentioned it to you because it might not be applicable, but this is one quote which is applicable gravely in KPIs. And this is the problem, that if your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Just hit the nail on the head and the problem is solved. But not necessarily. Sometimes the nails need to be out of that also, because you might need to entangle a loop around it and maybe tie say kind of a zigzag pattern or kind of a pattern where you can actually connect the dots, which I may say. So every nail does not demand a blow on the head, because if you are only having a hammer. So here, if you're only considering your practice, the number of OPD or your number of rupees that you have earned in a month, then you are actually committing a mistake. So what exactly is KPI management? I'll be going through this aspect very quickly in a short, so that you get a fair enough understanding of what I'm going to further speak on. So KPI management is basically the process of setting, performing, monitoring, and analyzing specific industry key KPIs, which helps various organizations to measure their level of success and in reaching their business objectives. Remember, if you don't set goals for yourself, you probably are not growing. Even if you're stagnant, you are actually going down in a couple of years. So you need to understand that the person, the organization, or the clinic, or the dentist, or whosoever, if he does not have a goal, if he doesn't have a mindset for that to achieve those goals, you are actually doing a gross injustice to your talent. You are just working like a donkey in your practice and not even bothered about what is coming and what is going out. So what are the fundamentals? Again, those basics would remain the common for any kind of situation. Ask a question, set a goal, then find a quantifiable means of achieving that goal, test these means, and then retest for consistency. So how you apply this to businesses and how you engage with your clients or patients is all what KPI management is all about. If you remember, I have multiple times given this example of an apex excavator or a rotary system in a root canal. I'll just detail it over here again for those who have not listened to that example. So the example I gave is that, for example, just presume the numbers. You are doing a root canal for rupees 2,000 in your clinic. So you're doing it in a manual way. You decided to upgrade. So you got a rotary system and an apex excavator along with, for example. So you say both the systems cost me 50 and 50, probably 1 lakh. I usually give a separate example of either of the two, either apex or rotary. This time I'm giving both of them together. So you say, ab mera bahut kharcha ho gaya, I'll try to actually raise the charges to 3,000 now. So what do? Do you apply the same charges in every patient? No. Why? Because the patients might not immediately accept it. So what is the step-by-step path to go towards that? The most common strategy that you employ is that firstly, you apply the enhanced treatment charges with the improved gadgets and your skill set. Of course, I believe if the gadgets are there, you also upgraded your skill set for that, or via your on-job training or via your separate course. Forget that. But I believe that you have done that. I'm presuming that. So you apply that firstly in your trusted and loyal patients, the ones who believe, Dr. Saab, you are the best judge, do the best for us. Money does not matter. So you apply those enhanced, believe me, if you compare, it is about 50% of the charges, 50% inflation from 2,000 to 3,000. So you apply those charges in your practice to your loyal patients and they start paying. The short-term goal is to measure or to apply that in your loyal patients. The long-term goal would be ultimately to shun the older system of manual root canal and ultimately do a rotary and with the apex excavator in every patient. But since you are not confident of raising the charges in every patient, and yes, it should be always a strategical decision also. So you are doing it in those patients. So here, the aim is not only the ROI on those enhanced charges via extra 500 per head, 500 for the rotary system and 500 for the apex excavator, for example. The aim is, the bigger picture is to give your patients a better comfort, to make your clinic appear like a upgraded scenario, so that the patients, when they come and they find a change over there, even if you are doing a manual system in someone, the display items might ring a question in the patient's mind. Dr. Saab, ye kya hai? Pehle it was not here. So you tell this is an advanced system of root canal. Why some of you would not like to actually apply the system in all patients initially? Because what answer people would give to their patients? They'll say, ये नई machines लगाई हैं हमने. किस लिए डॉक्टर साहब? इससे your root canal experience would be good. Experience, doctor sir, what do you mean by that? इससे root canal better होएगी. What you did not say, but the patients might presume is that, अच्छा इसका मतलब इससे पहले आप घटिया करते थे. You didn't do a good root canal before that. Oh my God, I have 2 faulty root canals in my mouth before you that I got done from you. So this is the way the patients form a perception of what you want to say. Another aspect to this, you actually slowly want to graduate into applying this to all your patients. So try to understand another aspect which I mentioned very clearly, the PSOR, the patient source of referral. Somebody, maybe one of your loyal patients, went in his social circle, his friend, family, colleague, neighbor, workplace guys. He said, my doctor used to do this kind of procedure in root canal. This time he did a wonderful thing. And he charged me a little bit more, but the experience was really worth it. Absolutely painless and absolutely perfect and so less time consuming. I'm actually impressed by his continuous upgradation. The referral who is listening to the call, please give me the number. The referral comes to your practice. Sometimes will not mention it that मुझे उसने भेजा है, your loyal patient. We check the patient and we don't ask, अच्छा आप कौन सी वाली root canal कराओगे? This is not a menu that you will get a rotary or this one. You will, for the sake of not being labeled as expensive, which many have this mindset when they start with the enhanced charges, you will say, okay, I'll charge you 2,000 for the root canal. Okay, fine. You go on and complete the root canal, maybe not so very good experience or a decent one, but the kind of, again, that S is equal to P minus E, David Hard principle that I have been say first law of service, which the patient came in with a certain amount of expectation, and what perception you created in the patient's mind why your treatment was not good enough. So the negative result S would be in negative because P is definitely lesser than E. So S is equal to P definitely comes into picture over here. He'll go back to your trusted and loyal patient that your doctor didn't even ask me. He worked with the old method only that बहुत सारे लोग करते हैं. He also worked with the same method. So that is where you actually lose one patient. The mistake at your end, you were either too busy or you were too afraid to actually ask the patient source of referral, so that if you know that the patient is from your old trusted source, you can immediately apply those enhanced charges in the new patient straight away. This was the mistake you do. And trust me, this is just a very small example. You just have to be alert and awake in your practice to every such incidents. And that can only happen if you treat limited numbers. You ask me, how can I afford time to so many things? Because I treat only very limited patients. Lockdowns notwithstanding, my OPD ranged from 12 to 15 maximum. And that included any checkups and complaints and all those things. I filter out my OPD myself. I'm not really fond of showing off my numbers because I believe what actually comes in my pocket, that matters more rather than showing someone that I have OPD of 30 or a 40 or a 20. Doesn't matter to me. Offer qualitative services to the patient and charge handsomely. And who bothers whether you did 5 patients in the day or 50 patients in the day? Yes, as age passes on, maybe in 6 years' time when I turn 50, I would believe that, yes, if I'm charging, let's suppose 200 for a consultation, I would happily exchange my OPD with someone who's having a 50 OPD just for doing 50 consultations in the day, not treating, just doing 50 consultations at 200. Just an example. So carrying home 10,000 every day, I really don't mind that. Without doing anything, if I'm carrying back home 2.5 lakhs without even hurting my back or neck, I'm game for it. But yes, your goals, your situation would change as per your age. Your efficiency, your output will not be the same. So why do you want to actually keep waiting till that scenario where you land up in a situation that you have lesser number of years to go for your retirement and a huge list of goals to achieve? So always start with goals in mind, because unless you have goals in mind, unless you make plans for them, unless you strategize them, you cannot actually apply them. And once you apply them, some things would work, some things would not. Probably something that works in my clinic would not work in your practice. Every situation is a different situation. That is what the beauty of GPM and NPM was, which we discussed in the costing part. I did not give you a standard formula. I told you to take out your GPM as per your practice, as per your materials, as per your salary to your staff, which gave you the prime cost. And via indirect also, the list of expenses was yours only. It was not mine. So it is a customized thing. It is a doable thing, as Dr. Sethi also mentioned. So you need to be aware of your numbers. If you are aware of your numbers, you can calculate your GPM and NPM. My procedures might not be applicable to you and vice versa. And when things work, you continue with it, giving it a long rope sometimes. When they don't work, you retest them for consistency and you change them, because everything would not be perfect in a given scenario. So this is what KPI management is all about. There are certain indices, certain metrics which you need to apply. I'll go on discussing as we go further. So why do they matter actually? Because it helps us to make better informed decisions. We apply one thing, does not work, we then shift to plan B. Doesn't work, shift to plan C. That is where it makes a difference. It improves your decision making skill. Luckily, I was born with a decision making skill, talent in me. No, I would say 98 out of 100, I really don't have any confusion in making a decision. Yes, occasional 2% out of 100, I still may have, but 98% of the time, because what I do is I actually don't overspend, overkill the time in making a decision. I always weigh the pros and the cons. My mind has been trained. The second aspect, which you asked me, how I am different from all of you, I have trained my mind in a better way that it actually works subconsciously as well. Sleep over certain things, and my mind gives me a solution by the morning if I am confused even for something. That is what actually will help you make an informed decision. You weigh the pros and the cons, and the biggest thing you have to worry about is that if your decision goes wrong, you don't spend a night sulking over it. You don't crib over the spilled beans. Fine, you always make a couple of them wrong. You win some, you lose some. It's all part of the game. But if you say keep on crying over the spilt milk, trust me, you will never make good decisions ever again. Because that is why I always say, हमेशा दूसरों की गलतियों पे ध्यान दें. And that is another aspect of my personality, which I say I learn from others' mistakes because it is cheap, or rather it is free. Life is too short to make all mistakes yourself, in your practice especially. So people can be really unforgiving, patients especially, can be really unforgiving sometimes in your practice. You can't really actually destroy a person's truth and say, sorry, this was a wrong decision on my part, I can't do that. Then no problem, doctor, we'll meet in the court. So it can be sometimes unforgiving as well. Then definitely when one things work, you are actually buoyed by those decisions, and it actually makes you take more improved performance in that regard. And then we actually seek out new and novel ways to have edge over our competition. That is what your differentiator should be. And people may have a few ordinary things, but if a few of those ordinary things work in unison, it may be extraordinary. Again, for example, in my case, there are a lot of people, practice management gurus in India. I might not be one of those. I don't self-style myself. There might be a lot of people who are teaching medical legal ethics. I might be one of them. There might be much better CAs than me who can teach finance for dentists in a much better way than me. But what differentiates me from those people is that they might be specialists in one or maybe two. But I have a specialization in all these three. And I make a link and a chain of these three and connect them together, which I believe no one does, at least in those regards of differentiation. So just three ordinary things, which for this there is huge competition, but those three existing in one individual is your differentiator. This is the way you separate yourself from the crowd. You'd never have to always find out a special thing to upgrade. Sometimes a few small things can actually make a big thing as well. So you need to find out your business secret, which is going to give you performance indicators for your growth in practice. And not every venture will have people when they have clinic, maybe they set up a 2-chair practice. They said, 2 chair hai, bahut hai, practice jitni bahut hai. They don't have any plans for expansion. Just an example over here. So then, but if they want to grow their business and track their progress, KPIs are the choice of measurement. What exactly is going to make a difference, whether the OPD is good enough, whether the numbers are good enough, whether they can actually bear the increased cost. वो increased cost calculate करने के लिए they'll have to know what is their one cost per chair per assistant in those regards, in those depths. If they know those numbers, then only they can actually calculate what would be the additional charge or additional cost per chair. And if there are no more patients or no number of patients that are increased, remember that is going to add up in the indirect costs, or maybe some portion the direct as well. And ultimately your NPM is going to reduce. What you're carrying back home is going to reduce. So people don't factor in those things कि ये चीज अगर ऐड करी तो इससे इतनी कॉस्ट बढ़ेगी, वो मेरा एनपीएम घटा रही है. I'm not talking about the depreciation either. Depreciation is just a small portion of the indirect costs. So your goals, your ability to set and achieve them is what your KPIs does. And these days in various industries, they have customer satisfaction indexes also. I have always been comparing or giving you that first law of service by David, the S is equal to P minus E, where I always mention that we don't have a direct system to measure patient satisfaction. It is a proxy indicator only. We measure by a P minus E principle. But yes, there are now available in various other industries, if not in our medical industry. Then we can measure employee performance, the journal engagement levels with the audience. There are certain things. If somebody of you has a YouTube channel and you have posted 3-4 videos, just go through the analytics of that. Trust me, you will be blown away. The kind of in-depth and in-detail analytics YouTube does. They'll give you click-through impression rates. They'll give you subscribers increase. They'll give you watch time. They'll give you so many things. And then how many were there? The non-subscribers watched your video. How many of them were male and female? What was their age group? 18 to 40, 18 to 30, 30 and 40, and so on. Just go through that. You will be blown away. The kind of indices just a YouTube channel uses. And yes, some of them might be not applicable to your mind. कि क्या इस चीज का क्या फायदा? But yes, those are tried and tested methods in the industry which are used. So again, Intel होना एक बात है. Intel means the information. But if you are not actually handling it properly, it can be damaged. For example, if the government has a Intel that the Prime Minister, again, just an example, Prime Minister is going to be attacked, let's suppose. If it does not utilize those agencies, security agencies don't utilize that and don't take care, those things can be damaging. The country might lose the Prime Minister or maybe injured. Those things can happen. Similarly, if you have the intel that this is the way to grow in practice, if you don't utilize that, it can actually be devastating as well. It does not mean that if you don't apply, you will not grow. It means that if you don't apply, you might go down as well, because the world around you is expanding. The competition for you is increasing. So ineffective management will lead to little actionable data and a terrible ROI, which we all would not want to have. And obviously there will be wasted focus, wavered strategies, loss of revenue. We are interested in loss of revenue. Yes, this is the last point. We might not be interested in other things. But we surely are कि यार पहले तो इनकम ठीक थी, अब क्यों नहीं हो रही? सब कुछ तो वही कर रहे हैं जो लास्ट ईयर कर रहे थे. यही तो गलती कर रहे हो. You're still doing the same things that you were doing last year, and the world around you has grown. So your old applicables are no longer good in today's scenario. You need to keep changing. You need to keep updating. You need to keep upgrading in certain matters. So it is important to think deeply about your practices to manage KPIs, but then there are certain universal guidelines which are applicable in our industry as well. So what are the best practices? KPI best practices that would include, I would say, set the KPIs which are actually aligned with the business goals. Obviously, I'll be giving you a few KPIs which you can measure. We had started with GPM and NPM. Those are also the KPIs itself. So then what do you want to track? Just be very specific. Do not track everything. Just have a few focus initially. If you're not very comfortable, we are not very focused toward using that, have a focus, have a narrow, have a myopic vision in that regard, that I want to measure this aspect only. Sometimes when you measure one, you can actually catch a hold of two another aspects, and slowly you can go on widening your horizons. And you should ensure that your key performance indicators are achievable. I want to double my practice in the next 3 months, next 6 months. Sometimes an unachievable target. And then one of the best practices is use a smarter principle, or the 6 A's. We all know SMART principle, but what is a smarter principle, or what are the 6 A's? Let me just tell you. So these are the two standard practices. I always say where the indicators would be most effective. So smarter criteria and the 6A. So we all know SMART means specific, measurable, attainable or achievable, relevant and time bound. If you add ER to it, it is evaluate and reevaluate. Certain things will work if you measure it. If it is not working, you need to reevaluate. So the smarter criteria is one of the say bigger pictures of your KPI management. Just a minute, please. Sorry. We had actually digging going on the whole night outside my clinic. It was there. My city has been one of the chosen cities 3-4 years back as a part of the smart city campaign. So the digging was out and there is no actually passage to come into clinic today. Of course, the interlocking tiles would be in place in 3-4 days, but yes, the inconvenience is there. So that is what I was directing my mate to do at this point of time. So sorry about that interruption. So let's see with those 7 principles of smarter. We all know specific is that you need to focus on one thing, whether it is a customer satisfaction or sales or retention. In general, I'm telling, not about dentistry. Then we talked about this thing, it should be measurable. So find out a definitive way to measure the data that actually needs recording. Obviously, simplify the things. Don't complex them. Don't make them complex. And because this is, if you can measure, then only you can say, yes, that it is an effective method. Then the goals should be achievable. Doubling your practice in 3 months or 6 months is maybe achievable goal, but usually not an easy one. Usually not a very easy one. So then the relevant one, you are having predominantly patients from Crown and Bridge, and you hardly do much of root canals in the month. Just an example. And you're upgrading on Apex Locator and your rotary systems. So you need to understand whether your target group or the kind of patients you have, whether your newly upgraded materials or gadgets will actually help them. Just because you have a, say, penchant for a root canal, you love to do root canals, does not mean that you will have a similar kind of audience. How will you measure the growth in such a situation when your target group hardly has patients for a root canal? So investing as per your ROI, we discussed in one of the previous webinars also in depth about this. So you need to be very sure about those situations. Then time bound, always set results with a parameter in mind. You cannot just go on with the time thing. You give it a span, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever you want to. If how long rope you want to give, you have to go about that part. Then evaluation, of course, if the goals are achieving that, that is actually kind of a performance analysis. You can say evaluation if the things are working, if the things are not working. And if they're not working, you reevaluate. Maybe your application would have been having some fault and not exactly your your process. Your process might be good, but your application might be faulty. So you reevaluate and maybe rebuild a strategy around it, and maybe then again test the waters once again. But yes, if you have done it with the proper strategy, you always can shift to plan B. And don't rely on your own judgment for this. Always have a team approach. Always have the third eye opinion, which I always say is the staff. So always take those opinions before you go into those things. So along with smarter, what is the 6A principle? So it should be aligned. Similar to what it is, it should be aligned with the specific targets. It should be attainable, much like smarter principle. It should be acute, that everybody should have a well-informed system of the goal, that this is what we are looking at, so that your team also works in sync with your goals. Then it should be accurate, so that the results are reliable and does not lead to any kind of misinterpretation. Actionable, if the KPIs do produce a data, we have a plan of action that yes, these are the changes we need to make if we want to make this gadget, make this service work even better. Then it should be alive. Constant, say, leveraging should happen through your organization's lifespan. So we all say marketing is all about ROI, or the return over investment. But it does not mean that you don't connect the dots. You still need to do that. So unless you have actionable results, unless you take action, you cannot achieve good results in those. And this is a process. KPIs is actually a process. And if you remember, I've given you a quote 2 years back as well, which I've repeated multiple times. Sometimes we are too interested in the proceedings that we forget about the process itself. Written by me only 2 years back. So we just forget the process which actually goes through that. I mentioned in those principles given by James Clear from Atomic Habits a couple of days back in the group itself, the latent potential principle. People would be interested in divulging the story of a person who has won a gold medal or a student who has scored 99.9% in his board exams. But what they will not cover is the grind those people have gone through. They will never go to a house. This student used to be a topper. See how he's working, how he's studying, and he will actually win, get maximum marks in the board exam. So this is the athlete. He's working so hard. He will get this much amount of medals in the Olympics or Asian Games or whatever. So these are the things that are never shown. So this is a process. Actually, we actually like to glorify an event. We never we never look at the process. So as business leaders, we need to understand that lack of data is not the issue. The lack of data is not there. Rather, we are overwhelmed with the data available to us in today's scenario. The only thing is we don't know how to use that data constructively. We just don't know it. The reality is that most businesses are already data rich, but poor in their insight. A quote by Bernard Marr. So you need to have a great insight, and you already may be having data rich. Just an example, very small example. WhatsApp started as a quick medium of communication. Is it a medium of communication even today? I would say no, a big no. Why? Because lot of messages are unread even in our mobile phones today. We sometimes do check personal messages, but we really don't check the say the group messages. Trust me, one of our group members actually put me a snapshot of another group member, and incidentally both were from group 1, and that would mean group 1 was created 3.5 years back exactly. And if both of them, one of them is a member of MPG as well. So the other member asked the person, can you give me the exact link of Dr. Bhavdeep's costing video? I want to search through it. I was actually impressed by your feedback. And I was like, face and palm movement. I am posting links for almost 1 year now in the group. And that person is asking for that. And that person is in group 1. What is that? Maybe he or she opened up the group after so many years. What is there? Too much data. Dr. Bhavdeep puts in too much data. इतना पढ़ा ही नहीं जाता हमसे. तो group में क्यों हो आप? You wanted to join this group for continuous updation and upgradation. If you're not utilizing that information, then you are actually fooling yourself. If you're not using that, that is what people, I would say 90% of my group members need to look at it. I'm not kidding, 90%. They hardly open up the group. They open up, and trust me, a few of those are my closest friends and relatives as well. I wouldn't name them, of course. I would not name anyone who are in my close family as well, who are in the group, who are dentists, who are a few are my batchmates as well, who are my very good friends as well. यार तू डालता बहुत कुछ है, इतना पढ़ा नहीं जाता हमसे. अरे भाई फिर छोड़ दो group. I'm not saying it that you are actually blocking the space of someone. But what I mean to say is that we are not actually utilizing a communication medium which can actually help us. The problem is we are fooling ourselves by making us believe हम इतने सारे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप्स में हैं, सो वी आर ग्रोइंग, हम पढ़ रहे हैं। एक संडे आएगा, मैं सारे ग्रुप्स में से बैठ के नोट्स बनाऊंगी, एंड आई विल अपडेट माई सेल्फ ओवरनाइट. ट्रस्ट मी, दैट संडे नेवर कम्स एंड नेवर विल कम. इट इज अ series of activities. मैं वही consistency, I always talk about that. Small things, small repeated things done every day, which will bring up results. If you are waiting for that elusive Sunday and 2 lockdowns have passed and those Sundays have not even come yet for you, trust me, they will not come even till your retirement, even if you're 30 years of age today. My things would hurt some people, but I really don't mind saying out crude but true words. Communication is one of the important ways where you can actually measure your efforts, your growth. If you're not utilizing them, you need to seriously look at yourself, do an introspection in whatever way you want to. So KPIs are actually an element of your plan that express what you achieve, what you want to achieve by when. Again, because it is time bound. So they are the quantifiable outcome-based statements which you will measure to see whether you're on the right track or not. And trust me, I will give you rather 27 kind of KPIs. You don't need to apply them all. Any good organization would use 5 to 7 KPIs to manage and track the progress of your plan. And trust me, दो आप already use कर रहे हैं, your OPD number, your average income or the total income what you are having. दो मैंने आपको और दे दिए, gross income and GPM, gross profit margin, and NPM. So you already have 4 indicators with you, 2 courtesy me, 2 courtesy yourself. So you need to understand that where does the problem lie. So where you are deficient, yes, we'll need a few more only KPIs as per our practice specification, and we can actually get the desired results. So what a KPI anatomy should include: if your KPI is structured one, a good one, it should have a measure, then it should have a target that should be matching your goal and along with the time period, time span in mind. Then a data source. For example, your patient source of referral, again, one data source. Your record keeping, again, one data source. Only if you know how to use them. Then the reporting frequency. Follow them up. If you're not following up on your plan, एक बारी डाल के छोड़ दिया, नहीं वो डमरू नहीं है कि बजता रहेगा. You need to understand that you continuously need to rewind the key of that, and then only you can actually get the results. So just an example of what it is. How do you measure it? The questions to ask: what is your desired outcome? How does this outcome help achieve your vision of success? How will you know you have achieved your outcome? And these are all indicators. For example, 1,000 new customers by the end of FY 2020 or 2021. So quantifiable target by the time frame is by the end of FY 2020. This is the time frame. The data source is CRM. For your case, it might be record keeping. Your monthly frequency for reporting or checking over your progress. This is the way you actually structure. So all the 4 things: target in your mind, what do you want to achieve? Time frame, how much time span you have given. Don't expect Herculean things in short amount of time, especially in COVID times. Then what is your data source? If you have applied, for example, if it is not the record keeping, you're applying something, you actually you have a dedicated staff to measure those things. Probably, for example, how long does a composite last? You have a staff to measure and make a record of that. This is your data source, not for KPI, just an example for otherwise. ये कितना है, you will tell me. A glass ionomer cementation or a glass ionomer base filling as a sandwich technique, for example, multiple things can be there. You have a staff who will actually keep a record of that. You cannot do all. So follow the 4D principle of time management always. Another aspect you asked me how I am different. I believe in the 4D principle. You all know I have written a book on time management as well. So do, defer, delete, or delegate. That is the 4D principle you have to follow. You can't do all things yourself, so do only the important ones and the urgent ones. You know which need not be taken up as a priority today. Defer them. You know they are not important. Even if you don't do them, you cannot actually, you will not lose something. Delete. And then you may not be good at that, or maybe the tasks are too trivial, which will eat up your vital time, which you have dedicated to another focus. Delegate. So these are the 4 principles. I just want to give you an example that happened with me last night. You already know I have a game on Wednesday. It rained heavily. Because of that, our game was shifted to Thursday. The webinar was on Thursday. So Friday morning, we had nothing. I had nothing planned up, but it was a reserve day. Again, because I can't keep it to Saturday. Saturday is again my game day. So I shifted my game to one day and a webinar to one day ahead because of the rain. The factor which was not in our control. What happened? The digging started last night. And trust me, the digging finished at 3:15 or 3:30. And there was no point, because that is my body clock. My wake up time is 3:30 or 4 o'clock every day, usually. There is no way my body can go off to sleep and get up again at maybe 6 o'clock for the webinar to happen. So I chose to stay awake. Again, yes, it will affect my efficiency in the day today. But what I'll do is immediately after the webinar, I've already messaged a couple of patients which I have scheduled, which are not that important. I have deferred them to tomorrow so that I don't affect their work. So the point I want to put across is that even I had this a huge, say, anticipation or huge advantage in that regard. If I can say, yes, I am alert and awake even at this point of time, even with almost nil sleep in the night. But then what actually triggered this chain reaction was one event that was uncontrollable. The rain, which happened on Wednesday morning, which derailed all the plans. But yes, I had a backup plan in form of a Friday morning. But then another event, the digging was happening. We were expecting it by weekend the last Saturday, which gone by, we were expecting the digging would happen because it is a chain. It is going on in the whole area. That process was delayed and they chose a Thursday night to do that. And all the diggings usually in most of the people's area finished by 1:30. Mine finished at 3:30 or 3:15. Who is at fault? No one. But then just imagine those factors which are not in our control made me sit through the night and even then continue the same with you in the morning. I did not change my plan. What it can affect is my efficiency during the day unless I catch up on some sleep in the evening. You remember, I have an evening session with you as well. I had already an event in the afternoon, which I postponed to tomorrow. Already did it last night. So there are certain things which your brain needs to react quickly to it. And the same applies to your KPIs also in clinic. You do not let the opportunity come to the last time and then decide. This is the way you actually think and proactively plan and proactively take action. Again, small little things which can make a big difference. So when you have a goal in your mind, do you have 5 to 7 goals? As I said, with metrics, as I said, you all need 5 to 7 metrics only. Do you have a combination of leading and lagging indicators, which can pull you down, which can push you forward? Is the measure and target for it clear enough for you to stand on its own? Or does it need a shoulder to measure? Maybe there is another associated activity which will measure it. So how long does your agent last? I don't know. How long your bond lasts? जितने agent चलता उतनी देरी bond चलता है. Just in vague answer sometimes. कभी देखा नहीं, कभी सोचा नहीं. Then how do you measure it? Small example. But then how can you track it? How can you measure it? Now come to the 27 KPIs. Of course, like the cost, all of them won't be needed. All of them not applicable as well in dentistry. Just to give you an idea, what can be the horizons? What can be the width and expansion of the same? And you need to just pick up 5 to 7 to 8 maximum for your growth. For example, in marketing and sales KPIs, number of new contracts signed, they always use the word dollar value for new contract signed per period. I've written money value, one and the same thing. So number of engaged qualified leads in the sales funnel, and hours of resources spent on sales follow-up, and average time for conversion, the net sales, or the dollar or the percentage or the money or the percentage growth. So then financial KPIs, you are aware of these things now. The growth in revenue, the net profit margin, the gross profit margin, the operational cash flow, the current account receivables, of course, applicable to industries mostly, the inventory turnover. You should have a gross indication of that, if not full. This used to be a column in your ITR 4, but no longer mandatory to be filled up now. So then the EBITDA or EBITDA. What is EBITDA or EBITDA? It is earning before interest, taxes, depreciation. In Western world, they use EBITDA. Earnings before income, before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Amortization is basically writing off an asset when it has actually covered its life. So they write off that asset. We very rarely use in Indian scenarios. Of course, industrial levels, they might be still using, but at a normal factory level, they don't use A1. So they only use EBITDA. So these are a few things which are used as a financial KPI. 6 in sales, 7 in financials. Customer KPIs, number of customers retained, percentage of market share, which we all know the global companies do. We have this much amount of market share. The Hindustan Unilever, the Colgate, the given throwing up your numbers. Even the Coke and the Pepsi go on throwing the numbers to you. Even the news channels, Aaj Tak has this much amount of market share. And the net promoter score, average ticket support resolution time, the customer service. Then operational KPIs, order fulfillment time, time to market, employee satisfaction rating, employee churn rate. Then the marketing KPIs. Dr. Divya asked me this question yesterday. Sir, how do we measure the social media growth? Of course, I'll be dealing with this part in a little scenario if I have time today. Around 8:10, 8:15, I'll wind up whatever we have covered till then. And then we'll take up from the same slide in the next session. So monthly website traffic, number of qualified leads, conversion rate for call to action content, keywords in the top 10 search engine, blog articles published, ebooks published this month. So this is a way to actually know about marketing KPIs. Don't worry, Dr. Divya, I'll be dealing all with detail. Already they were part of my presentation before your question. So if you have a foundation and a fundamental knowledge of the KPI anatomy and your starting points, you can be on the right track to achieve your goals. And remember, we need just about 5 to 7 core metrics. You don't need to have 27. You don't even need to know the 16 kind of cost for this purpose. I mean, you don't need even the 16 kind of matrices as well. Just 5 to 8. Already I said, mentioned 4 of them are already with you. Courtesy your costing sessions. You had 2 probably, you have 2 more. Some of you might be having additional ones as well who are actually post-morteming their record keeping. Trust me, if you post-mortem your record keeping, it will throw you insane amount of information. Only you need to put in some time and effort, and you need to be aware and be very awake about certain things. So let's start the KPIs. A little bit portion I've discussed in the costing scenario. Again, you would understand why this was there about the practice profitability at the end of costing session. Because I had this series already in my mind. So the structuring and sequencing, you all know, it is a part of my game plan, how to dish out the information in a particular manner to you. So this is a portion which you have covered. Yes, a few things are new. Not everything is the same what was covered in part 5. So 4 KPIs which everyone needs to know. Trust me, profitability wise, you can say there are 4, but in general, there are 11 KPIs that every medical or dental clinic should know. What are those 11 KPIs? I'll give you. But before that, give you the 4 dental KPIs and then the marketing KPIs in that sequence, what Dr. Divya also asked. So how do you know whether your dental practice is successful? Many times you don't know the answer. It'll say, ठीक है, पैसे आ रहे थे पहले से ज्यादा आ रहे हैं, पिछले साल इस महीने 5 लाख कमाया था, इस अब 5.5 लाख हो गया, इनकम तो बढ़ रही है. इनकम देखा, एक्सपेंसेस नहीं देखा. You need to know why, where, what is the profit margin. Those are the real pictures. You might be having a good inventory setup. You might be, say, going about this task in a way where you might be having more input costs. So remember, you need to go through that criteria also. Then your new patients plus your 5-star reviews that can bolster your case. But then sometimes these metrics like money or maybe a 5-star review will not give you the full picture. How you understand your practice and how you understand it well will give you a good idea of that. And for that, you need KPIs. We all know KPIs are key performance indicators, and they will tell you how well you're meeting your business objective. So some of the KPIs that you monitor will be unique to your business and your goals. They'll not be like whatever happens in any industry or factory or any organization or any multi-level company. It will not be applicable to your clinic. But yes, there will be some which are applicable to your clinic and will not be applicable anywhere in any industry. Maybe a portion of that, but not always. But then people again try to complicate things too much. They have too many tracking things. मैं ये भी मेजर कर लूं, मैं ये भी मेजर कर लूं, मैंने इस महीने कितनी स्केलिंग की, मेरा स्केलर कितना घिसा होगा, मेरे को कितनी टिप्स के बाद करना होगा, तो उतनी मैं कॉस्ट पेशेंट की ट्रीटमेंट में ऐड कर दूं. People do this kind of calculations as well, and I'm not joking. This happens with one of my few friends who are more meticulous in calculating the cost. मेरी इतनी स्केलिंग के बाद मैं टिप बदलता हूं तो मेरे को इसका मतलब इतनी पेशेंट की कॉस्ट में स्केलिंग ऐड करनी पड़ेगी. How much do you charge for scaling? I charge 800. तो तुम ऑलरेडी अंडर चार्ज कर रहे हो. If you're undercharging by charging 800 for the practice and you're adding a tip cost, what about the other cost? So I gave him a list of the other cost and he was like, अच्छा ये भी मेजर करूं, कोई बात नहीं, मैं कल से ये भी मेजर करूंगा. So why are you complicating your things yourself? Measure the GPM and the NPM first. So I gave him a GPM and NPM a couple of years back. Now he's on track. He also messaged me yesterday. अब तूने सारी दुनिया को दे दिया GPM NPM formula. मेरे को दिया. मैं कहता तो did you have exclusive rights for it? मेरा formula में जिसको मर्जी दूं. Obviously he was joking, but what I mean to say is that this is a formula which I actually worked on more in this part, and I told him also that there are certain things which I've improvised in the NPM, because my earlier NPM calculation used to have a broad figure of the indirect cost, which I used to arrive. क्या इतनी तो indirect cost बनेगी, arriving at an average. This time I improvised it and made it look like an average, made it look like a customized thing. What, as per your direct cost, will be your indirect cost, relying on your balance sheet, relying on your numbers. So this was the big change from that. So I made him also know that. मैंने कहा चल तेरे को काम पे लगाता हूँ, अब लग इस काम पे तू भी. और ये संडे तक वीडियो है अवेलेबल, उसके बाद डिलीट हो जाएगा. So he was like, okay, कोई बात नहीं, काम दे दे तो I'll do that. So don't get too bogged down by too many KPIs, but still measuring a few things for your growth is absolutely mandatory. So I discussed this part, profitability part, that if you say love profits, you will have a revenue goal. कि इतना revenue आ जाए तो profit हो जाएगा. Again, your benchmark for expense is what? I don't know. But we just look at the revenue goal. Okay, I'll have this much revenue, my practice is profitable. This is sometimes before you know about the direct and the indirect expenses. Such people who have a revenue goal, they always look at the direct part only. They never share at the indirect part. So not only revenue, but profitability measuring is what you should be doing actually. Don't only look at the revenue part. So because otherwise you will put your practice in a precarious situation. You might be earning more revenue by less charges and treating more patients, affecting your health, affecting your family time, affecting your neck and back, burning yourself more, which the enhanced revenue goal will not specify. Yes, you had more revenue, but what cost did it come at? You need to understand. So then the formula is likely one which you have never seen before, or which you have seen before, sorry, the GPM and the NPM, which you all know. So my slide in that section was only about GPM. This slide is a composite of GPM and NPM. So you know how much you have left before. I did not intentionally mention the word EBITDA over there because of the reason I was mentioning it over here, because my goal and focus was to make you understand the GPM, the NPM, and not the EBITDA. This is again very important in that regard, because sometimes your interest and your taxes will make and say make or mar the picture. It might appear good, it might appear bad. And if you remember, the GPM formula was revenue minus cost, and uske niche ek note tha, here the cost means the prime cost or the direct cost. Now I have changed it intentionally. Again, a further graduation into a further phenomenon. An example of structuring and sequencing here. So gross profit margin, revenue minus prime cost, revenue divided by revenue into 100. So what was the NPM? Revenue minus total cost. Now you know what is total cost. It is the direct plus the indirect cost, or the fixed plus variable cost. Whatever way you can want to calculate. This is the way. And I hope after you have done those 5 presentations and you know how to calculate, at least most of you will not forget this thing. जीपीएम में प्राइम कॉस्ट होती है जिसको हम डायरेक्ट बोलते हैं, इसमें डायरेक्ट प्लस इनडायरेक्ट होती है जिसको हम टोटल बोलते हैं. So this is the thing you need to actually remember, and we have to look at the money after expenses. कितना profit है, rather than bothering about EBI, say ITDA, interest, taxes, depreciation, or other expenses which are may not be part of a clinic, but maybe your personal expenses which will eat into your profit sometimes, which may be a mixed road kind of a thing. For example, digging done outside my clinic. If I have to put in an expenditure on that is an expenditure I can't count in my clinic expenses. I may also, but it is not in my expenses because it is my residence also. And that is the thing I can't add in personal expenses also. This is a kind of an incidental expense. So this is some other expenses. This is an example of that, which will eat up into my profits. मेरा तो बिना बात के 5-6-7 हजार लग जाएगा, for example. Of course, now the corporation, the improvement trust are doing the things. They are placing the interlocking tiles. So what I mean to say is sometimes you need to be aware of those incidental expenses also, which are neither your personal nor your clinic. You all have some of those. So again, this was when Dr. Ajay sent this message of the banking personnel. Incidentally, I was going through the presentation. Remember, it was on Wednesday or I think Tuesday when he Wednesday only when he plays this message. Incidentally, this was opened. Because it was a slide I actually had placed in this presentation itself. So मैंने image यहाँ से copy किया और उसमें डाल दिया क्योंकि presentation I was just checking that a day before or 2 days before the lecture I was checking the presentation. So then ये उसमें था. GPM के बाद भी मुझे बहुत सारे calls आए. And I was like, ये डर अच्छा है कि ये तो प्रॉफिट कुछ भी नहीं कमा रहे हम लोग. So किस चीज को कहां अप्लाई करना, you should know it. This thing was applicable in Dr. Ajay's case also, so I applied it there also. It was already a part of my system. मैंने स्पेशली को गूगल सर्च नहीं किया इसके लिए. मेरे को मूवी भी याद थी, मेरे को एक्टर भी याद था, so मेरे को रिलीज डेट भी याद है. Because if you remember, this released on 15th of August, and Saho, the South Indian movie, was supposed to release on 15th of August. There is a meme on this that Saho was postponed to 30th August. Then वो meme में ये बनाया था, तेरा डर मुझे साहो वाले को कॉल कर रहा है, प्रभास को, तेरा डर मुझे अच्छा लगा. Again, a different scenario, but you need to apply certain things can be applicable multiple times. So what exactly? Again, this slide was not mentioning NPM earlier. Now it is, because it was उसमें से जानबूझ के मैंने delete कर दिया था. Because I didn't want you to be overwhelmed with the information. I wanted you initially for 1.5 sessions to focus on this only. Focus on this only, do yourself, which you all did. Most of you did, arrived at this number, and then I threw the bomb at you of NPM, which kind of stripped most of us naked. That ye actually scenario hai. Gross profit margin GPM is 40 to 50%. And NPM of 20 to 30%. If you are not aware of this, your answer would be यार dentistry में पैसा नहीं है. We crib, we criticize, we sulk, and we always say अपने बच्चे को कभी dentist मत बनाना. Why not? Because you don't know how to run dentistry does not mean dentistry is bad. So again, there are several circumstances that can affect your margins. But that should not, that should give you a benchmark not to follow easily that ways. So it is helpful to know your profit margin. So I hope you know by now how much you earn from a procedure like a crown or a tooth extraction or a RCT, courtesy the wonderful 6 speakers I had on that day. So expenses like an hourly rate, which is usually an assistant rate per hour, is the thing that you actually use in the Western world, where people are paid per hour. I came across this calculation, modified it according to the Indian setup. and included that in the direct part, and included the remaining 1/3, which I took it as an average holistic picture. It can be 1/5, 1/4 also, 1/5 also. It depends upon, but what I've taken on the, say, average industry 1/3 price, which the staff actually encourages in. Sometimes we are working on the patient also. Without the system, nahi to ye kaam chhod de, to wo kaam kar le jaake. That person is actually going through those scenarios as well. So you always want to see your fixed costs. Sometimes you don't take rent into account. We took all those expenses into account, indirect ones. Of course, they are technically direct expenses for clinic only, but we took those into account for the calculation of NPA. So yes, then the second part was the new patient conversion rate. You know that this is one of the most washed out statistics, which people don't follow actually. And new patients are the, say, lifeline of any business, or new clients, of course, for that matter. So always make sure that the patient's first visit is not their last visit in your clinic. The only problem that every 100 patients that come in a clinic, only 30, 40 become new patients. And I'm talking of the long procedures. I don't talk, koi aaya patient aapka filling karwaya, usne chala gaya. Don't call it a conversion. Don't call it a new patient either, for that matter, for calculation purpose. Those are single tooth isolated procedures. The only thing was, if the patient wanted to spend some time with you, talk about his other problems, then that is kind of a conversion. So always focus on lead generation and patient conversions. And the straightforward formula or the metric for that is new patient conversion rate is total number of new patients divided by number of total patient consultation into 100. Clinic plus phone. That is your conversion rate in percentage. So once you know what your conversion rate is, you can actually start looking at ways to improve it. So your staff training scripts, which we discussed in one of the previous webinars, how you actually script the conversation, the communication part to your patients. Of course, not going into much detail. So you can detail. Then find out from your receptionist, your staff, what the top inquiries of the patient are. Sometimes the patient will shirk from asking you. They will ask your assistant, Doctor Sahab, ye bhi karte hain ki nahi karte hain? And sometimes, हाँ करते हैं, वो तो करते हैं. And sometimes the staff will even forget to tell you, because they know you are already doing it. So what is the importance of such a question? The importance of such a question is that it is a kind of inquiry. That means that your target group is not aware of your services in all. So thoda sa apna vision ko myopic se telescopic you have to do. What your top inquiries are can determine. Your target group is not aware of it. For example, my target group in my group is not aware of Dr. Bhavdeep's YouTube channel also. Even after 1 year of regular posting, consistent posting. And for being in 3.5 years since the group 1. If they are not aware, then somewhere I may be at fault, but my fault would be still a lesser percentage. I may not have been expressive enough. I may not have been communicative enough. But in this case, I was actually, log dukhi ho jate hain ki roz main video ka link dalta hu. How can you do it? How can someone be so consistent? मैंने कुछ नहीं किया. I just scheduled my videos. I did not overwhelm you with the information कि रोज मैं नया वीडियो डाल रहा हूँ. पहले दिन HD वर्जन आता है, दूसरे दिन HD वर्जन आता है. And then बीच में गैप आ जाता है जिसमें मैं शॉर्ट वीडियोस डालता हूँ, which I record in the interim. अब जो वेबिनार आता है, already till July end webinars are already scheduled. This webinar will probably go on 27th or 28th of July. So did I make any special effort? No. It is just an automated process. Similarly, you need to understand that certain things will be in automation if you plan well and plan really well. All the aspects have to be looked at in a way that they give you a result in that direction. But then for that, you have to think, eat, sleep, dentistry, like me. If you do that, you will also try to train your mind. You can train your mind very easily. Training your mind is not a difficult task. So then again, you get telecalls over people. I always say, sometimes you say, if you don't want to do a telephone consultation, you always say, we don't quote our prices over the phone. But then you can work on those scenarios where you can actually make the patient lure enough to come to your clinic to have a sneak peek into your services. Then the third KPI was the cancellation or the no-show rate. Who are dropping off your schedule? It is one of the fastest ways to lose your profitability, because you will lose out on that precious 1 hour, 45 minutes or whatever time slot you have. And if you don't have any backup, your assistant and you are losing out. The direct cost has been incurred, indirect cost is also incurred, and you lose out on that time span to earn what you would have earned in that scenario. That is why rich people say time is money. So if you have those kind of situations where you are having consistently cancellations or no-show rates at the last hour, you need to really do a introspection. So then obviously the staff might not be conveying the information. Maybe you're not conveying the information properly, that what are the casualties of postponing at last moment. You need to convey that to your patient. So yes, if they're going off your schedule, they are taking the money right off your pocket. So many practices will not have a good grip on cancellations because they don't have a system. And I always say, people fail, systems don't fail. So if you have a system, it'll work. If that system of appointment or no-shows thing or cancellations, emergencies aside, of course, that can happen with anyone. But in general, if that works in my clinic and many of your clinic, why it should not work in all of our clinic is the question you have to answer yourself. नहीं, पेरेंट्स सुनते ही नहीं है, वो कहते हैं नहीं हम अपॉइंटमेंट में नहीं आएंगे, हम अपनी मर्जी से आएंगे. What the hell? I will not treat you if you come on your mistake or come on your time. I am the one who will choose the time. It is my place. My rules apply. Who gave you the right? Of course, you're not going to say that, but you should understand and ask yourself, if the patients are taking you for a ride, taking you for granted, then you need to understand that kahin to galti aapke end pe hai na. Why do you bother that even they are doing it? So again, this is the thing that you can track manually. Then you can identify patients with a broken appointment with that analytic tool if you are doing it manually. And if you have a backup or try keeping a backup from a patient close by if you're overfull for that day, if you have a last minute cancellation. But then the communication has to be opportune. Sometimes the patient calls up. So, sorry, sir, I don't have a time for tomorrow. I'll give you for day after tomorrow. नहीं डॉक्टर साहब कर देते, मेरे को कल टाइम है, कल आई एम फ्री. Not an emergency, but कल I am free. So, okay. How much time do you need? आप मेरे को बोलो, मैं 10-15 मिनट 20 मिनट में आ जाऊंगी, whatever. Okay, ma'am, sir, I have an appointment at around 12 noon tomorrow, which is not confirmed, and the patient might skip because the patient was not very sure. So if the patient cancelled at the last moment, and if I give you time, will you be able to come? Yes, sure. Because sir, 10 minutes pehle bata dena, I'll be ready. The patient already is mentally prepared. Next day, your appointed patient surely misses up. Call this patient, backup liya, and you actually can fill up that no cancellation with that. But then what was the key? A communication done a day before. वो rigid mindset नहीं, हमारे पास कल time है, हम तो परसों ही देखेंगे. That mindset needs to be shunned away. And for that matter, also very important is that you communicate to your appointed patient already. That if you want to cancel, please do inform me. I have a backup. I'll arrange that patient accordingly. उसके मन में भी urgency create हो जाएगी, नहीं यार पहले बता दूं. Sometimes patients are vocal. Doctor Sahab, I am very particular. You know about all my appointments, but tomorrow I might have to go at the last moment, and I might not be able to inform you till the last hour. Will that do? In those cases, you make a plan yourself. This is your plan B. This is the way you can fill up your appointments easily, quickly. And I do that very quickly. I have a very densely populated society around me, and my majority people are from those patients only. So I rarely have a no-show, but whenever I have it, I usually have a backup patient to fill into that slot. But the communication is the key. Both the patients should be aware of this task a day before. And then if the no-show patient actually shows up on that scheduled time, you need to take out a minute and inform that patient who is in waiting. Sorry, ma'am, the patient has turned up. So we'll stick to the original time that has been allotted to you day after tomorrow. In that case, the next day, it is tomorrow only, because it is the next day, just before the appointment. So always involve in that communication. And trust me, small little things like this, they can make a substantial difference in your practice profitability. Then always, it is not always about the footfall. It is always about the retention of the patient, which plays a big role. And we actually don't even track a number that how many old patients are not coming to us. Any scheduled checkups, any 6 monthly recalls, any oral hygiene or scaling procedures which you have scheduled, the patients are not turning up. I actually make the patient put a reminder in their phone itself, and I make it sync with their Google Calendar. So even if they change their phone, the same reminder is in there. Again, a small little thing, but this is the way you actually can keep on churning out your old patients as well. Then these, if your old patients are not coming and your new patients are still coming, you'll feel यार busy तो हम पहले जितने ही है ना, नए पेशेंट आ तो रहे हैं तो क्या हो गया, पुराने नहीं आ रहे तो. दिस इज लाइक अ लीकी बकेट, कभी ना कभी खाली होएगी, कभी ऊपर से फ्लो of the water or the flow of the patients will reduce, the leakage might increase more. यार बाल्टी पहले भरी रहती थी, bucket was full earlier, now it is half, now it is 3/4. There might be some problem happening. कहाँ हो रही है problem यार? We don't know. The problem lies in the retention phase. So is it enough for 4 of you? So okay, I wind up here and we'll take up further from is it enough slide, because after these 2 slides, KPI matrices, I have those. And yes, I have to move to 11 indicators as well. But before that, I'll discuss the 6 essential marketing KPIs. Again, a part of Dr. Divya's question was already in the slide. So I'll be covering those 6 indicators. Just to give you an idea what it is, that you are doing a paid advertising, paid marketing on Facebook or Google AdWords or whatever. How to measure that? Or Dr. Divya's question was that you always say give it a long rope. Kitna long rope or kis tarah ka long rope, and what are the criteria to measure that? So it will be already covered in that. So I'll be giving that. So I'm stopping my share for any kind of questions from all of you if there are. Any questions? Anything clear? Everything clear to you, or nothing clear to you, or something clear to you?
Everything clear. Sure. All are interconnected, so we can relate to it. I mean,
yes, surely. Again, as these sessions complete, I think what I can, the amount of material I have covered today, so minimum 3 sessions would be there. So the first is done today, the second would be next time, and third should be the winding one unless some things are added in the interim. So surely next Wednesday or Thursday, I'll be taking up the part 2 of this. So do ask me anything if you have in mind. Yes, Rishabh, ask. ऋषभ इज एक्चुअली ड्राइविंग. ही टोल्ड मी सर सेशन पोस्टपोन कर दो, मैंने फ्राइडे को जाना है. मैंने कहा वो तो पॉसिबल नहीं होगा बिकॉज ऑलरेडी इट इज द लास्ट डेज ऑफ जून एंड आई हैव अ टाइट शेड्यूल टू मेंटेन. Can't postpone it to Saturday or a Sunday, because this Sunday I'm not having free time either. I have to spend a lot of time on the desk at the Sunday itself, because I have a webinar in the evening as well on Sunday in Dr. Raghu's IDA branch. So that webinar on Sunday would be streamed on Facebook Live. So can't give you all the Zoom link because that has to be shared with the members, and their branch members are 257 itself. So almost equal to WhatsApp numbers. So whatever numbers they have, first come first serve basis will watch on Zoom. The rest will watch on my page only. So I'll be giving you the page link. Surely you already know it, but you can watch it on the page. Yes, Dr. Rishabh, waiting for you.
Sir, just a minute. Hello?
Yeah.
So can you hear me?
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Sir, जैसे आपने बोला कि हमें रेफरल पेशेंट को ट्रैक करना चाहिए. सर, फॉर एग्जांपल इन माय प्रैक्टिस आई हैव माय प्रैक्टिस इज नॉट इन द मेन मार्केट. इट इज मतलब मोस्ट ऑफ माय पेशेंट्स आर रेफर्ड पेशेंट्स, but the problem is that it is a sort of mixed practice where rural and urban both type of clients are involved, and many a times when I ask them who referred you, they will tell कि हमको उन्होंने भेजा, उनको भेजा. Actually में I also can't remember कि ये किसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं.
नहीं,
The point here is that
Okay, go on.
So the point here is that yesterday only a patient came to me and he inquired me about the root canal treatment. I explained all the charges. After that he said to me कि मेरे को 3 दिन मेरे को एक रिलेटिव है, उन्होंने भेजा, वो आपसे 3 साल पहले रूट कैनाल करा गए थे और तब आपने जो है ये चार्ज किया था. तो अब सर मतलब दैट वाज अ वेरी ट्रिकी कंडीशन. वहाँ पे आप क्या बोलो क्या नहीं बोलो. ऑल्दो आई एक्सप्लेन दैम कि 3 years बैक द चार्जेस आर समथिंग अब अलग है, अब आज इसमें अलग है. एक्सप्लेन माय पॉइंट दैट वो पेशेंट रेडी भी हो गया. बट मेनी टाइम्स ऑफ दिस सिचुएशन अकर. सर रेफरल को मैनेज करना भी कैसे, मतलब आप उसको कैसे जो है स्ट्रीमलाइन कर सकते हो?
सिंपल आंसर टू देम इज 3 साल पहले के चार्जेस, 3 साल पहले कोविड नहीं था, 3 साल पहले पेट्रोल का क्या रेट था, 2 चीजें तो बहुत कॉमन है. 3 साल पहले
वो तो पॉइंट एक्सप्लेन हो गया.
यस
मतलब व्हाट आई एम आस्किंग कि जो पेशेंट अगर आता है और मैं उससे पूछता हूँ कि आपको किसने भेजा है, तो क्योंकि एक तो मिक्स पॉपुलेशन है रूरल और अर्बन की, तो जो रूरल साइड का जो पेशेंट आता है वो अगर बताता भी है देन आल्सो आई कैन नॉट कनेक्ट कि किसने इसको भेजा.
वो फिर थोड़े से आपको बादाम शुरू करने पड़ेंगे मॉर्निंग में.
नहीं तो सॉफ्टवेयर
सर इसमें क्या
अगेन
सर क्या
देखिए, द सिंपल एज डॉक्टर सेठी आल्सो मेंशन द रिकॉर्ड कीपिंग. मैंने बोला हमेशा रिकॉर्ड कीपिंग में ये कॉलम बनाना है आपने, ठीक है. इफ यू आर डूइंग रिकॉर्ड कीपिंग, ऑफ कोर्स इफ यू आर नॉट रिमेम्बरिंग अबाउट द पास्ट, फॉरगेट इट. बट देन फ्यूचर में ये मिस्टेक ना होए. दिस इज द थिंग यू नीड टू मेक श्योर. इफ यू आर एक्चुअली आज भी नहीं याद हो 3 साल बाद आपकी मेमोरी और कम होगी. वी आर ग्रोइंग इन एज, बट मेमोरी और नीचे कम होगी. देयर विल बी लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स. सो जो आज गलती कर रहे हो वो अगली बार ना हो, अगली बार जो रेफरल हो वो पता हो. द रेफरेंस क्वेश्चन, द फर्स्ट थिंग, आई नेवर आस्क इट इन अ डायरेक्ट मोड. आई इनडायरेक्टली आस्क इट एंड इन अ वे दैट द पेशेंट एक्चुअली गिव्स मी एन आइडिया कि ये किस सोर्स से आया है. एंड देन इट इज, मैं आपको एग्जांपल दिया था फॉर एन ऐसे फॉर अ सर्विस दैट यू हैव यूज्ड इन दैट ट्रस्टेड एंड लॉयल पेशेंट. बट देयर, अगर आपको उसने रेफरल दिया एंड यू डोंट रिमेंबर, so what I believe that might not be a trusted and loyal patient आपके top 5, 10, 15% group में. If it is your usual regular patient, then you need to treat that patient as a usual regular patient only.
हाँ सर, ये तो होता है क्योंकि जो एक रेगुलर पेशेंट होते हैं उनके बारे में तो याद होता है कि हाँ उन्होंने भेजा है, उनका नाम बताया तो वो नाम से याद आ जाता है. हेलो बट नाउ मेरे केस में एक और सिनेरियो है. मेरे पास कई पेशेंट्स आते हैं, मैं विदाउट लुकिंग एट द रिकॉर्ड कीपिंग आई टेल देम आपका मैंने इस दांत का काम किया था 27 में, ये किया था, इस डेट को किया था. सॉरी मुझे आपका नाम याद नहीं है. मेरे को सब कुछ याद है, नाम भूल जाते हैं आजकल. एंड दिस इज हैपनिंग विद मी सिंस द पास्ट 3-4 years. ट्रस्ट मी, अगेन दिस इज द थिंग. मैं भी बादाम खा रहा हूँ आजकल, शायद मेरी मेमोरी इंप्रूव हो जाए. बट देन जस्ट एन एग्जांपल दैट सर्टेन थिंग्स आर रेपिटेटिव एंड दे tend to skip, or trivial things tend to skip out. I used to have a photographic memory in my college time. My batchmate Anandpal, Dr. Sethi knows him. He's from his city only. He say कोई लड़ाई हो जाती थी ना, डॉक्टर भवदीप को बुलाओ. उसको अगर उसने बोल दिया तो इट इज अ स्टैम्प, ये चीज हुई थी इस डेट को इतने बजे. इट वाज काइंड ऑफ, मेरी इतनी रेपुटेशन थी इन कॉलेज फॉर अ फोटोग्राफिक मेमोरी. सो यस आई डू रिमेंबर लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स, बट बहुत चीजें मैं भी भूलने लगा हूँ, स्पेशली इन द नेम पार्ट. I still don't forget the treatment. Sometimes I'll give a exact idea कि हाँ आपका इस मंथ में ट्रीटमेंट हुआ था. A patient came to me yesterday, said आपने मेरे से ये वाला क्राउन ना पता कब लगवाया था, मार्च 2005 में. डॉक्टर साहब आपको 15-16 साल वाली चीज याद है? मैं कहा याद है भाई साहब, आप शादी से 2 दिन पहले आए थे मेरी, इसलिए याद है. The kind of incidents that you correlate. Yeah.
Sir, I have one query.
सर एक चीज और पूछी थी कि जो हम जीपीएम कैलकुलेट करते हैं, although I have not,
your voice is cracking up, Rishabh can't listen.
उसके बाद
Rishabh, nothing is audible, the voice is cracking up.
Sir, can you hear me?
गाड़ी रोक लो साइड पे 2 मिनट. Yes.
जीपीएम कैलकुलेट करते हैं
या
जो अपना जीपीएम कैलकुलेट करते हैं, तो सर उसके उसमें हमें अपने वही प्रोसीजर्स निकालने चाहिए जिनसे हमारी कैलकुलेट होता है, जो हमारा पेरेटो प्रिंसिपल है, ये हम हर एक प्रोसीजर के लिए जीपीएम निकाल करके फिर उसके बाद अपना प्रॉफिट मार्जिन निकालेंगे।
For a startup, I recommend from every procedure except the very trivial ones. अगर क्लास 1 एलसीएफ का भी लोगों ने कैलकुलेट किया है, क्लास 1 एलसीएफ कितनी बड़ी चीज है, अगर क्लास 1 फिलिंग का कर रहे हैं तो व्हाई नॉट, फॉर अ स्टार्टअप यू शुड नो इट. इट विल गिव यू अ फेयर अमाउंट ऑफ आइडिया कि आपका ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट मार्जिन फ्रॉम ऑल ग्रॉस प्रोसीजर्स कितना है. देन यू कैन फाइन ट्यून इट एंड अप्लाई टू योर 80-20 प्रिंसिपल along with your practice.
ओके
Yes, Dr. Amit.
हाँ सर, अभी जैसे रिसर्च सर पूछ रहे थे, इसके लिए मैंने सर लॉकडाउन में अपने सारे कार्ड्स निकाले, जो मैनुअल रिपोर्ट कीपिंग था उसमें कैटेगराइज करा अपने से लोयल पेशेंट को और एवरेज पेशेंट और पुअर और चिक पेशेंट वाले को मैंने A-B-C कैटेगराइज किया सर. तो एज आई लर्न फ्रॉम यू, तो उसका बड़ा बेनिफिट मिला है इसमें. जैसे ही कार्ड सामने आता है पहले फिल्टर लग जाते हैं कितना हमारा खून चूसने वाला है, कितना सपोर्ट करने वाला है.
ग्रेट ग्रेट ग्रेट. यस,
ऐसा कुछ और भी ट्रिक्स कुछ और है तो सर वो भी बताइए, अगर कुछ है तो.
As I go on, अब you asked me about myself. Prateek asked me something about myself. Prateek is not here, but I have answered what exactly. मेरे को लिख के भी भेजूंगा आपको मैं कुछ ना कुछ different aspects. But at various points, applying to various KPIs, I gave you my differentiators. What differentiates me from a few people? What do you believe that I am? I believe I'm not different. I'm like you only, one of you only. But yes, what differentiates me, what I feel is my plus point according to my SWOT analysis myself. I gave you those points. So this is the thing we need to all remember. So again, पता क्या होता है? Sometimes we wait for that ready-made recipe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 form. Sometimes the tips would come like this in the middle of a session from nowhere. इसलिए बोलता हूँ सब कुछ देखो. You'll still learn a lot from my sessions, surely. Dr. Raghu, very long night. हमारी तो night अभी भी चल रही. Dr. Raghu, I'm still, my night is on. Domestic reasons. Okay, no problem. I'll try whatever I can help you out best. So don't worry. So Dr. Divya asks, the new service application in loyal patient, should we apply the new service without applying an upgraded cost? No. In loyal patient, the new service surely with the upgraded cost only, because those are the patients who blindly trust you. But just explain them before that this is the thing I'm going to do and this is going to cost you this much. Prior information has to be there, but that is the best way you can start with a, say, बोलते ना एक rocking start मिल जाए आपको, तो that is the way you can do it. Why? Those who are trusted patients do that. And upgraded cost means that if something is costing you more, you should charge something from there, those patients as well. You can't do it that you leave it for other patients to be charged from that. You need to charge. I hope I'm clear.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Dr. Sabyasachi.
Yes, sir. My question is actually pertaining to Dr. Rishabh's questions only. That some patients refer a new patient, and that patient was about 1 year or 2 years back, and the charge has been revised, and the new patient is telling that you have done that patient in that cost. And in that context, you have said that we can compare with that market value also. I also do that. And is it okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Perfectly fine. Don't treat the two things. Whenever the patient says, "आपने उसमें इतने में किया था," don't take it on your ego. Don't get frustrated. Don't get flustered. आपके चेहरे का एक्सप्रेशन नहीं बदलना चाहिए. चेहरे पे लाल रंग नहीं आना चाहिए. गुस्सा नहीं आना चाहिए. Should be calm and calm. सर आप भी जानते हो 2 साल पहले किन चीजों का क्या रेट था. एवरीथिंग हैज अ कॉस्ट. हर साल इन्फ्लेशन बढ़ती है, गवर्नमेंट बढ़ा देती है, हम क्या करें? वी हैव टू कीप इन सिंक विद द रनिंग टाइम्स. इफ वी आर प्रोवाइडिंग गुड सर्विस, अब कोविड ही देख लो आप, कोविड के कारण कितनी कॉस्टिंग बढ़ गई है. सो वी कांट डू एट 2 years old cost. That is the simplest answer you can give. COVID has given you a big blanket to cover all your costs and add your lesser charged ones as well. For example, if you're charging 2,000 for a service, COVID made you say your cost go कि अगर आप 2500 नहीं लोगे तो आप सेम प्रॉफिट नहीं अर्न करोगे, लेकिन you know you were charging actually 500 less for that earlier, तो सीधा 3000 बढ़ा दो, 1000 कोविड के मत्थे डाल दो 500 की बजाय. This is actually a good say alibi to actually recover from your recover your old wrong methods of charging. So you can actually use COVID as an alibi also, but then you should be confident of charging. That is the only thing. मैं तो ये बोलता हूँ ना, कोविड ने बहुत चीजें अच्छी की हैं, The only thing, if we are willing to learn and willing to apply.
So if I may add something.
Yeah.
So but this ये point तो है ही है, but apart from this, what we also try to say is that आपके फ्रेंड में जो ट्रीटमेंट हुआ है, ये कोई स्टैंडर्ड कोई एक ब्रेड तो हम खरीदने जा रही ना कि जो उनको ब्रेड उन्होंने खरीदी हमने भी वही ब्रेड आपको दी नहीं है. आपका केस और कॉम्प्लिकेटेड हो सकता है, आपका रूट कैनाल एनाटॉमी अलग हो सकती है. आई मीन द ट्रीटमेंट इज डिफरेंट बीइंग अ ह्यूमन बॉडी. एक जन में ही तो अलग अलग रूट कैनाल की एनाटॉमी होती है, तो आपका ट्रीटमेंट उनका ट्रीटमेंट भले ही रूट कैनाल है, बट दे आर नॉट द सेम डिफिकल्टी लेवल. दैट इज व्हाई इट वेरीज. आई मीन इट्स इनवेरिएबल कॉस्ट.
एक्चुअली इट इज करेक्ट, बट ये होता है ना, वो देखिए ना मूवी प्यार का पंचनामा, कि हस्बैंड और वाइफ की जब लड़ाई होती है ना, तो वो ये आज नहीं, ये बड़ी लड़ाई में यूज करेंगे. तो लाइक दैट इट इज काइंड ऑफ अ थिंग. इट इज अ ब्रह्मास्त्र. ये कॉम्प्लिकेटेड चीजें, ये सारों को कस्टमाइज चीजें समझानी. अगर आपका काम कोविड की कॉस्टिंग या दूसरी चीज से, इन्फ्लेशन से या गवर्नमेंट पे डालने से चलता है, तो व्हाई यूज द ब्रह्मास्त्र अगेन एंड अगेन. जो उससे भी नहीं समझता उस पे ब्रह्मास्त्र फेंको, सब पे मत फेंको. बिकॉज उससे क्या होगा, इट विल स्लाइटली, जब हम ऐसी चीज एक्सप्लेन करते हैं ना, समटाइम्स अ हीटेड एक्सचेंज कैन लीड टू अगेन वो चेहरा पे फ्लशिंग ऑफ द स्किन एंड फ्लशिंग ऑफ द फेस हो जाता है. यार ये डॉक्टर आराम से बात नहीं कर रहे, थोड़ा सा पूछा कि इतना महंगा क्यों है, तो खाने को दौड़ गया मेरे को. जस्ट एन एग्जांपल. If you can just casually put it on the government and the inflation and the COVID, why want to be specific? If the patient still insists नहीं ऐसे थोड़ा हो गया, वो हो गया, then अपना ब्रह्मास्त्र निकालो. ये बड़ी लड़ाई आ गई है, इसमें यूज कर लो. Any more queries or we call it a day? Chalo, I take your leave. Getting ready for my clinic as well, and plus my kids' classes start at 9:30, so they would need the laptop. I meet you in the evening at 8 p.m. with the financial investment journey part 2. The presentation is ready, so I don't need to. I can catch up on my sleep in the afternoon. Bye bye. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Do put in.
Thank you, sir.
Do put in your feedback in the WhatsApp group for the others to actually give you a carry home point, whatever you had. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.